This is Colm McGuigan for IFLTV. Delighted to be joined by co-founder of Most Valuable Promotions, Nakisa Bidarian. Nakisa, how are you doing today? All good after that weekend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, not so bad. We've actually, been meaning to speak to you for a while. I know you were very busy in Dallas and really we didn't have a chance to catch up with you that week, but it's good to get on at this point and recap everything that went on last week. Obviously, my first question to you is just the success of that event on a global scale, the numbers that you've got back from Netflix. Just did you expect them to be this big?
We had two main priorities in terms of the performance of the event, in terms of viewership. One was to be the most viewed stream in US history, and that record was Peacock earlier this year for an NFL playoff game, 23 million. And the other goal, with which Jake and I were very passionate about, and we spoke at length with Netflix about, was to have the most viewed women's sporting event across all sports in US history. So, and we expected to achieve that. A lot of people didn't believe us, but that was our expectation. And we met that expectation for both of those metrics in the US. We blew away the Peacock streaming number, and we blew away the Women's World Cup 1999 viewership number on broadcast television on Fox. We blew Fox out of the water with Netflix.
Whenever you first, started this venture with Jake, did you envisage moments like this? Because, a lot of people he's called the problem child. A lot of people have their opinions on Jake Paul, but really what he's done for this sport is he's transitioned it in the mainstream audience, I'll say, and this Netflix is further evidence of that.
When I met Jake Paul, I knew he had a unique offering for combat sports because he had a captive audience. No different than KSI and Logan Paul, right? They come with a fan base that is rare to find in boxing or MMA. In traditional ball and stick sports, by the time you become a pro, you often have a fairly meaningful audience, so you can convert that. So when I met Jake, I said, okay, that's pretty unique. Now his audience was vastly smaller when I met him in October of 2019, but it was still like 25 million people across platforms, right? Plus his YouTube. I always believed we could do some very meaningful, disruptive things. I said that to multiple companies that I pitched Jake Paul to. I said that to peers who I worked with. I said it to individuals that we wanted to partner with at the time to say, trust me, you want to be a part of this. We're going to build something very meaningful in the next 5 to 10 years. So I knew it could happen. Did I think that we were going to do this fight in Netflix 3.5 years after starting Most Valuable Promotions? Probably not, right? We put on an event of scale, size as any amazing promoter out there. We put on an event that no other promoter since 1979 has put on in terms of viewership in the US. We put on an event from a revenue perspective that's bigger than anything my former firm, the UFC, had done for its first 20 years of business. So it definitely was an amazing outcome for us.
What would you say to the people out there who, there's been comments this was rigged, Mike Tyson couldn't throw an uppercut. Like, what would you say to these people?
They're either dumb or they're clout chasing, right? It's a regulated sport with regulated sports betting with a public company partner in Netflix. So if we were going to rig a fight, that would be a federal crime. Jake would go to jail. I would go to jail. Mike Tyson would go to jail. Netflix executives would go to jail. And their market cap, which has actually increased by over 25 billion since last Friday, would probably decrease by 50% because they committed fraud. They committed a crime if they did that. So it's just such idiocracy. And people are like, oh, well, they're doing WWE scripted. There's no betting on WWE. There's no regulated markets that are taking bets on entertainment. This was a professional live sporting event. Mike Tyson wasn't able to hit Jake Paul because Jake Paul had better movement than Mike Tyson. Jake Paul didn't end up finishing Mike Tyson because he realized he was winning the fight and he started to take a defensive stance and ensure that he wasn't caught by something like he was the day before, which was a phenomenal slap right on the cheek.
What did you think of that slap at the time? A lot of people, say it was scripted. I was meters away from it. It definitely wasn't scripted, but did that surprise you at the time?
Yeah, I didn't expect it, and I didn't know what happened instantly until, to Mike's credit, right away he said he stepped on my toe. That's why I did that. And if you look at the replay, Mike wasn't wearing shoes. Jake was wearing fairly large Air Force Ones, and the front of Jake's shoe, I'm not saying stepped on Mike's toe, but definitely grazed Mike's toe. And if you look at the history of Mike Tyson, he's been actually vocal about how sensitive his feet are and how, cautious he is about them. So I think in that split instance, he thought this guy's trying to hurt what he knows is a weakness for me, which is my foot. And that was not what Jake was trying to do. Jake just stood up on him and accidentally grazed against his toe.
Obviously, with the success of that event, and everyone wants a piece of Jake Paul now. I've seen Daniel Dubois on Instagram calling him out. I've seen so many different people, but in the UK, for example, Froch has said he'll fight him. Tony Bellew,
Oh, Froch?
Froch.
Froch, sorry. Okay, yep.
So he said he'll fight him. Tony Bellew said he'll fight Jake Paul. What do you want for Jake Paul next?
So let me address actually those two names first. Tony Bellew. Tony Bellew in his 12th fight, same as Jake's 12th fight, fought a 9-21 fighter. That fighter went on to finish his career 10-28. Tony Bellew had an amateur career, if I'm not mistaken, a fairly significant one. Jake Paul in his 12th fight fought Mike Tyson, who's 58, but one of the baddest men ever, in front of 72,300 people. And he was cool, he was calm, he was collected and composed, even though he'd had his face slapped up the day before. And he delivered on the biggest stage in the world. And nobody even know who Tony Bellew was in his 12th fight. Carl Froch, irrelevant, just trying to gain exposure, clout, and hopefully another payday for himself. What have those fighters done for the sport? What did they give back to other athletes? Did they propel women's boxing? Did they take young boxers under their wing? Did they work with USA Boxing to bring exposure to amateur boxing or the UK Boxing Association for the amateurs? Did they put money back into renovating gyms? They've done zero. You know what they've done for? For themselves, like most fighters do. No problem with that. But stop attacking this young man who's 27 years old and has done more for the sport than any 27-year-old in history.
I appreciate, that angle where you're coming from, but I think with Carl Froch and Tony Bellew, they're both former world champions who are now retired, who probably say, well, look, you fought a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. Why not fight a 45-year-old Tony Bellew or Carl Froch? And I think from a
Nobody in the US can even mention those guys' names. They're just irrelevant, right? There's like, unless you're a hardcore boxing fan, which is probably less than 50,000 people in the United States of America, nobody has ever heard of those guys. So if you're suggesting, hey, come to the UK in our backyard to fight an old dude who you'll get no credit for beating, and you're not going to do big numbers in the US, which is the biggest market, to give them one more payday, why? Who are they? What have they done? Other than being champions for them, their own account. Awesome. Good for you. Jake Paul's going to be a champion too. He's 4 years in the sport. He has one amateur fight against a YouTuber named Deji.
I know we're pushed for time. I've got two more questions left. I'll try and be as quick as I can. My second question is about Taylor Serrano. I think it'd be wrong of me not to mention this. What an incredible spectacle for women's boxing. And being Irish myself, I'd love to see a third fight. Is there a possibility we could see that in Croke Park on their most valuable promotions?
I think, look, if Amanda and Katie wanted it to be Croke Park, we would do everything in our power to make that happen. We have the right media partner. We have the right relationships, and we like doing iconic things, right? For us, it's not as much around like, hey, this is home advantage, this isn't home advantage. It's like Jake and MVP put on this once in a lifetime event at Croke Park. So that's interesting to us. But I could also imagine Amanda Serrano saying, why would you want me to go fight in front of 60, 70,000 people who are going to be, against me in the trilogy? So is there an interest of doing a trilogy? I think there has to be. These women just had 74 million people watch them perform, which is, think about this stat, man. since the days of Muhammad Ali, the most watched fight in US and UK history is Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. The second most watched fight in US and UK history is Taylor Serrano 2. Not Anthony Joshua, not Tyson Fury, not Tony Bellew, and not Carl Froch, right? Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, and Jake Paul made that happen. So we'll pursue a trilogy if they both want to, and we'll do it in a way that makes it very special.
Last one for me. I know we're really pushed for time. We've seen on Fight Week, Nakisa, there was a bit of animosity between yourselves and Eddie Hearn, and then we've seen the scenes in the ring. Now, I watched an interview today. I don't know if you've seen it, where Eddie has apologized for being in the ring and said that maybe he was a little wrong to act that way. What was your whole take on the whole Fight Week situation, and then obviously what happened in the ring?
Sure. So full context, every time you do a provision of services with a different promoter, you negotiate for tickets, for hotel rooms, and also for credentials. And this event being, a one-of-a-kind new thing with Netflix, we were very specific about the credentials, and Matchroom had 2 credentials. So there was probably over 100 emails exchanged with Matchroom asking for more credentials and MVP saying, we're not able to give you more credentials. This is what's in your contract. Then there was another 40, 50 emails exchanged on Eddie having access to the ring. And it wasn't about Eddie Hearn. If you look at our fights, if you look at how I conduct myself, I'm never in the ring until the last fight of the night, or if one of our fighters actually wins a belt, right? It's a massive moment for them. So we don't do the walk with the fighter. We don't get in the ring with the fighter when the fight is starting. It's about the fighter, giving the fighter the platform, the exposure, the opportunity for the fans to engage with the person who's performing, not the promoter who's promoting the performance. And in this instance, ultimately, when they kept coming back to us, the day of the fight, I said, if Katie Taylor wants Eddie Hearn in the ring, then 100% Eddie Hearn is going to be in the ring because we're about the fighters. So I said, just have Katie hit me up and let me know. And we heard from Team Taylor. I didn't hear from Katie, but I heard from her team, and they said Katie absolutely wants Eddie in the ring. And within 1 second, I said, no problem. He has ring access. Having looked back at it, maybe that was the wrong decision because it just created a certain environment that wasn't great for the sport, given the platform we were on, the amount of eyes that were watching it. I appreciate Eddie apologizing. That's gentlemanly of him. I haven't watched the interview. He did tell me he was going to apologize, and I'm glad he did it.
Well, Nakisa, I really appreciate your time, and hopefully we get more time in the future to speak to you. But thank you again, and great to have you on IFL TV.
Thank you, man. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.